Shalom, my name is Todd Bennett and I'm coming to you from Jerusalem, Israel, and I want to talk more about Matthew 24. Last time we talked about Matthew 24 and the Olivet Discourse, and we compared it with Luke 21, which is also considered to be the same text as the Olivet Discourse described in Matthew 24. But we saw that Luke 21 actually occurred in the temple, not on the Mount of Olives, and Luke 21 dealt specifically with the issue of the destruction of the temple and Jerusalem, while Matthew 24 actually deals with that issue along with a couple other questions. So now I'd like to look at Matthew 24 specifically and look at those questions and then take a look at the text and see which text actually belongs to which answer to the question, and that provides some clarity, because a lot of people are just taking Matthew 24 carte blanche as a prophetic statement of something that has to happen in the future. They portray it as if all of it has to occur in the future, and of course now they're looking for things to occur which clearly occurred back in the past in 70 CE and were a fulfillment of Yeshua's prophecy concerning the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. So in Matthew 24:3 we read the three questions. It says, "Now as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, 'Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?'" Okay, and so when he said, what will these things be? When will these things be? He's dealing specifically with that question that he previously talked about. When will the temple and Jerusalem be destroyed? When will no stone be left unturned on one upon another? So he then begins to answer those questions in Matthew 24:4. And he starts by saying, "Take heed that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, saying, 'I am the Messiah,' and will deceive many. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you're not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet." And he continues on with a variety of statements, and you have to understand that he's still referring to the destruction of the temple and of Jerusalem. And he continues on through 24:15, "Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, then let those who are in Judea flee." And again, you have to understand, this is what happened when the Roman Empire surrounded Jerusalem, and that's even referred to in Luke 21. This was the abomination of desolation prophesied by Daniel when Rome came to make Jerusalem and the temple desolate. It was a destruction event, and it was a judgment event, and that's what you have to understand. That we talk about that in the book The Final Shofar at length, and that's critical to understand, because many people are still looking for a rebuilding of the temple and another destruction and an abomination of desolation before the Messiah returns. But that's a big mistake. It already happened in 70 CE. And we continue with all this information that Yeshua is referring to regarding 70 CE, the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple by Rome. And he says, "Let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains." And that happened. We know that Yeshua's disciples, who heeded his words and heard those instructions, did in fact flee to the mountains across the Jordan into Pella. All this happened in the past. And then it goes on to talk about the woes, and for then there will be a great tribulation, such as not been since the beginning of the world until this time, nor ever shall be. And of course we know that the destruction and the agony and the incredible tribulation that took place in Jerusalem was just horrendous. I mean, people were killing one another. Bodies were piled up, disease was rampant, starvation, people were consuming their children. It was a horrible, horrible event. So again, we're still talking about 70 CE. And unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved. And that's absolutely correct. Everybody in Jerusalem would have died if that siege had not come to an end early. Okay, then it's important. We're at Matthew 24:23. Then he digresses. He says, "Then if anyone says to you," and of course we're talking about then during the tribulation of 70 CE. "Then if anyone says to you, 'Look, here's the Messiah,' or 'There,' do not believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will rise and show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you beforehand. Therefore, if they say to you, look, he's in the desert, do not go out. Or look, he's in the inner rooms, do not believe it. Again, this is when all the tribulation is taking place in 70 CE. And then in Matthew 24:27, he says, for as the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so also will be the coming of the Son of Man. For wherever the carcass is, there the eagles will be gathered together. So here he answers the question of number two. Question number two, what will be the sign of his coming? And it's in the context of 70 CE when people are telling you he's here, go out to the desert, he's in the inner room. He's saying, don't believe that, because this will be the sign of my coming. When I come, it's going to be as the lightning from the east to the west. But again, he's still talking about a warning given in 70 CE. If they're talking about him coming then, don't believe it, because this is how I'm going to come. And by doing that, through this digression, he also answers question 2. Then he gets back to the tribulation that he's talking about in 70 CE, Matthew 24:29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, again, he's talking about the tribulation that's occurring in Jerusalem when Rome is surrounding it and is about to destroy it. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from heaven and the powers of heaven will be shaken. Again, then people read that and they're thinking, okay, this must be a future event also, but they fail to realize that this is really judgment language. It's a very Hebrew thing to say concerning judgment being rendered upon a people or a nation. And an example of that can be found when the day of Yod He Vav He, the day of Yahuwah, was pronounced against Babylon in Isaiah 13:10. It says, for the stars of the heavens and their constellations will not give their light. The sun will be dark at its rising, and the moon will not shed its light. Again, this was language that judgment was going to be rendered on Babylon. In other words, lights out for you, Babylon. It's all over. The same type of judgment language was rendered in Ezekiel 32 against Pharaoh in Egypt. It says, when I blot you out, I will cover the heavens and make their stars dark. I will cover the sun with a cloud, and the moon shall not give its light. Again, very similar language to what Yeshua was stating concerning Jerusalem and, of course, Judah. And even the day of Yahuwah in Joel 2:31, the sun shall be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the great and awesome day of Yahuwah comes. So, see, Yeshua was giving judgment language over the kingdom of Judah. He'd already said this prior to his death and resurrection on other accounts and other parables. The parable of the fig tree. He was talking about the fig tree that didn't bear fruit and it would be chopped down. If it didn't bear fruit, he cursed the fig tree at Bethpage, which was the seat of the Sanhedrin, which means the house of unripened figs. You see, the figs represented Judah, and so Yeshua was rendering judgment upon Judah and upon Jerusalem, upon this kingdom that had been allowed to come back from Babylon and was not following the commandments, was not in covenant, and so therefore it was going to be judged. So this was all about the judgment of Judah, the temple, Jerusalem. That's the context of what Yeshua was doing at that time. So after we get that judgment language, then in Matthew 24:30 it says, then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and then the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory, and he will send his angels with a great sound of a shofar, and they will gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to another. And that, of course, is the answer to the third question regarding the signs of the end of the age. It's going to end when the final shofar is blasted and he will gather up his elect. So those are the three questions, and we can see that much of what Yeshua was saying did not apply to the end of the age, a future event, which, by the way, doesn't mean the end of the world. The end of the age is not a complete destruction of the planet. It's just it's most likely the judgment of the planet, but it doesn't mean it's all over at that point. So Yeshua is going to gather his elect at the end of the age, and he describes how he's going to do it when that shofar is blasted. So much of what he spoke of on the Mount of Olives during the Olivet Discourse in Matthew 24 concerned the destruction of Jerusalem and the destruction of the temple by the Romans in 70 CE, and much of that was fulfilled long ago. So with that understanding, I hope that you have a better expectation of now what needs to occur before Yeshua returns at the end of the age. And I hope now you understand that many things that maybe we've learned through Christianity, through various teachers, many of these things don't have to occur before Messiah returns. And I think many people are kind of falling asleep because they're saying, well, the temple hasn't been rebuilt, we haven't seen the abomination of desolation, so we've got all this time built in. But that's not the case. These things don't have to occur for Messiah to return. So again, we don't want to be one of the foolish virgins that falls asleep and doesn't have oil in our lamps. We need to always be looking up. We need to stay awake, and for our redemption draws near. So I hope that helps you get ready. I hope that helps you prepare. I hope that helps you understand the times that we live in just a little bit better, and the expectations concerning future events. Until next time, my name is Todd Bennett from Jerusalem. Shalom.